even if you can see the faces that are here. I think I would have to let them to introduce themselves. Maybe we'll start with you.
Thank you so much, Tino, for having me at the podcast. It's an honor to be part of this. My name is Katarina, and I'm a pediatrician and diabetologist in Charité University Hospital Berlin. I'm also head of medical of dedoc, and I've been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 12 years old.
And maybe you could take it up from there.
Yes, thank you, Tino. It's a great honor to be on the podcast. We're talking here live from ISPAD. My name is Bastian Hauck. I am the founder of dedoc. I started dedoc more than 10 years ago. I was diagnosed with type 1 25 years ago. I look forward to this interview about dedoc, about where we come from, what we've been doing, and specifically about the dedoc Voices program. And just as a disclaimer, I'm also serving on the board of the German Diabetes Association and IDF Europe.
Wow, great to have you. You're the source of inspiration for so many people that will watch this, and I know they'll be intrigued. So today we are talking about dedoc. Most of us might know about it. It's a growing, dynamic platform that welcomes everybody to the podium. People will have to attend conferences. So I don't know, like Bastian, if you could just share with us about the idea behind where it came from and why the name dedoc.
There's different ways of telling this story, but I think the easiest is to start where we are right now. The slogan that I use for dedoc when people ask me, what is that? What's dedoc? I say dedoc is a platform for others to stand on. And with others, I mean you, people living with diabetes, people having lived with diabetes for a while who are engaged in advocacy, who want to talk about something, who have concerns, matters on their mind that they want the world, the diabetes community to know about. What dedoc is a platform for you to come to talk about it, as you probably already do, or some of you probably already do on your blog or your social accounts or in your local communities, etc. And the dedoc platform wants to make these voices louder and heard, wants to bring them to a real table, such as here. This is what we do at ISPAD right now. We bring, with the dedoc Voices scholarship people, we bring a select group of diabetes advocates to the most important scientific conferences in the world. And these, for now, are specifically the ATTD conference on diabetes and technology in spring, and then EASD, the largest diabetes conference in the world, the European conference that was just happening 2-3 weeks ago, and ISPAD right now. And looking forward, we also did the German Diabetes Conference this year for the first time. We're also looking to maybe bring a few of those advocates to ADA next year. So there's a lot of other things I could say about where we come from, but I'm sure we'll get to that with your questions.
Oh, thank you so much for that brilliant, awesome response to this. I don't know if Dr. Kate, you would need to say anything to top it off from what Bastian said.
Yeah, Bastian has pretty much outlined already what the framework looks like. I can just add from the healthcare professionals and clinicians' perspective that it's so important to have people with diabetes at conferences like ISPAD. It's so important that patients, people with diabetes, are being acknowledged and recognized as experts in the field and as an equal stakeholder as part of clinical care research and advocacy. And I'm so glad to see that happening.
This is really great. So thank you so much for that response. Now that you are here, Dr. Katarina, maybe I could want to ask, maybe people already know about this, about the do-it-yourself thing, like that the invention of this thing. What can you tell us about this and its impact into the diabetes community?
Thank you so much for that question. So I'm using an open source or do-it-yourself artificial pancreas for my diabetes treatment. And Bastian and I are both involved with the Open project, which is an EU-funded project about the entire We're Not Waiting movement. This is a movement of people with diabetes that started off with a few people that discovered how to remote control their insulin pumps and how to reverse engineer their devices so they can connect them with control algorithms that they have coded themselves. And this was really groundbreaking for a lot of people that started using it and had very good experiences with it. But I think it also shaped the dialogue around what do people with diabetes have to say and to contribute if it comes to research and to device development. And I'm so glad that the Open project could contribute to that dialogue and that we could collect a lot of evidence that we now have all together. It's a bit of a gray area like ethical legal wise to use devices that are not, regulated by the authorities and that are not licensed. But I'm so glad that the Open project, but also other research projects around the loop observational study or around the CREATE trial could generate this important evidence to show, hey, it's really out there. We know about it, we've tested this in silico on pigs, on little ones, big ones, and it's really helping everyone.
Oh, thank you so much for your contribution in the diabetes community. And we need this thing from people living with diabetes, having to discover some of the things because they know how relevant they will be because they also are living with diabetes. And now maybe we could now take it up to Bastian. dedoc, each and every year, they have so many conferences, extraordinary conferences that people will be privileged to attend. And almost every time, because you're always welcoming new members. And what's the idea about this? How is dedoc different from any other established organization that is doing like the diabetes work? What can you tell us?
Let me maybe take a step back to where we started from and where we, again, got to what we do before then going into the details of what the dedoc Voices program is about, which you are referring to. When dedoc started over a decade ago, it was pure peer support in the terms of being out there on Twitter. I'm sure many of you know the hashtag DOC, DOC, Diabetes Online Community, or maybe the hashtag DSMA, Diabetes Social Media Advocates, that will run, I believe, by Cherise Shockley. It was kind of the early origins of the Diabetes Online Community out there on Twitter and on the forums and the AOL, CompuServe, whatever, in pre-Facebook, Insta, etc., social media world. When I started the dedoc account and the dedoc hashtag, the idea was to bring that to Germany and German-speaking countries, because that's where I'm from. I'm from Berlin, Germany. So DE is the DNS for Deutschland, Germany, like .com, international, .de. So dedoc was initially the German chapter, if you want, of the Diabetes Online Community. And we did follow, basically, Cherise Shockley's and DSMA's and the DOC's model. We ran weekly tweet chats. So every Wednesday night, I would get up, spend an hour or so thinking about a topic and a couple of questions, then in the beginning have conversations with myself and a couple of fake Twitter accounts, and from there it grew to, I think for 3 years, I did 150 tweet chats on different topics in the diabetes space, from almost medical to sex, drugs, and rock and roll, etc. And more people joined. This was the early beginnings. It was peer support through Twitter, getting people together, talking about diabetes and stuff that matters. Later on, we started to, with Twitter kind of going a bit down in Germany and Facebook surfacing and YouTube and all these other social media platforms, we wanted to bring voices that we had gotten to know through these tweet chats a bit further up. So we created Doc Day. Doc Day initially was a face-to-face thing we did at diabetes conferences. So we thought, there is a couple of few diabetes advocates at some of these conferences like EASD. How about we get a room and get them together and just meet and exchange in real life, not just on Twitter. And it was great. I remember the first times we did this, meeting some people face-to-face that so far I had only known their Twitter avatar or Twitter handle, and I had no idea who was behind it. Sometimes I wouldn't even know the real names. So we did that for a number of times. In the beginning, it was really hard. I remember the first time we did a Doc Day was 7 years ago at EASD. We weren't even allowed to enter the conference premises. We had to move outside of the conference. I rented a small co-working cafe, got some coffee and croissants, and that was it. But it was great to have this room of 20, 30 early diabetes bloggers and advocates that I had only met on Twitter. Fast forward to 3 years ago, Doc Day had been established itself. We met at these larger conferences. It was becoming a regular. We had, I think, our biggest in-person Doc Day was 150, almost 200 people in a room, so it was quite something. There were more HCPs and nurses and researchers and industry people joining, and it was really becoming a meetup of the patient voice and those actually attending those conferences. But it was still limited to people that by some incidents happened to be there. And I was always thinking, how do we make that bigger? Now, something that helped with that was COVID, actually. Although we had started the dedoc Voices program just before COVID, the first dedoc Voices program and the first Doc Day where I had funded people to come to ATDD was in February 2020, so it was just a week before COVID took off. So we had one of these doc days, but we flew people in from all across the world. I didn't even have the funding. I was a bit crazy. I was just inviting people. I said, I'll pay for your flight and some shitty hotel, and we'll make it work somehow. And then I did the tours at ATDD, and I went to all these companies and said, look, we brought these people. Isn't this great? Now, can you help us maybe fund it? Because I actually did this on my own accounts. Fast forward, COVID hit. Everything went virtual. For us, that was quite lucky in a way, because we probably couldn't have scaled Doc Day to what it is today, because suddenly there was no more flights to be covered. There was no more hotels to be paid for. All we had to do is switch it to virtual. And it allowed us to get so much bigger and reach Tino in Zimbabwe, for example. We now have in the dedoc community not only German or European advocates, we have advocates from all over Africa, from India, from Pakistan, from Latin America, from Korea. It's really become international. And the dedoc Voices program, it's something we have continued throughout the virtual world. Slightly apart from Doc Day, we did these community events, but we still brought people to these scientific conferences, but in a virtual way. And now with ATD, EASD, ISPAD coming back in person, I don't want to say post-COVID because it's still here, but now we have kind of founded ourselves or grounded ourselves in this community well enough so that we can actually go to corporates and say, can you please fund our program, because this is what we've been doing for a number of years. And right now we have 25 dedoc voices here in person in Abu Dhabi. 2 weeks ago we had 25 dedoc voices in Stockholm. We have another 25 attending virtually. Next year we're going to do the same thing. ATDD, EASD, ISPAD. We gave more than 150 scholarships this year. It is, I think, by now the largest scholarship program in the world, and we hope to grow it even bigger.
Wow, what a detail. Thank you so much. You had these all in your fingertips. You never missed anything. dedoc has come from a way too far, and now we are going, it's now international, because also I'm part of the dedoc Voices. Maybe we could hear from Katarina. Where do you see like dedoc in the next 5-10 years to come?
Well, the dedoc team is growing, so we never had as much growth in members of the core team. And for the next years, I think we will see what we can do with so much human power. So before that, it was a one-man show by Bastian and the dog. And now it's an entire team, which is awesome. So I hope the dedoc Voices will be a regular thing. But I think we can do also a lot more on advocacy, and in terms of stakeholder involvement from people with diabetes, there's still a lot to be done, and dedoc is a key player in the field, so we can't do it without the dedoc Voices and the dedoc team.
Wow, how great. That is amazing. So yeah, thank you so much. Briefly, from Bastian, how does like one become a dedoc voice? And I know like usually people say there's only an opening for new members to come in only when there's going to be a conference. Can you explain a little bit about that?
So that is something we are working on right now, how to make the program more inclusive and bigger, maybe also apart from conferences. But for now, this is the case. For now, we cover these main conferences. And 2 months before a conference, we open a call for application. You will find it on our website, dedoc.org/voices. The next one is opening up November 1st, so you can apply throughout November to attend the ATDD conference in February 2023. And then 2 months before EASD, we will open the call for applications for the EASD and ISPAD conferences again. You apply, the application process is very straightforward, it's not complicated. We basically just want to get to know you. If you're interested, we're asking you 3 questions. Who are you? Why do you want to become a dedoc voice? And how will you pay it forward? Because that's the #spirit motto on which dedoc is built. I said it's a platform for others to stand on. We will fund some of the best patient advocates, diabetes advocates in the world to come to these conferences. The reason behind is very clear. We don't do this for someone like you so that you learn and take it home and keep to yourselves. We do this because before I met you, I knew nothing about the diabetes situation in Zimbabwe. How would I? I live in Berlin, right? I still don't know a lot about Zimbabwe. What we can do with the dedoc Voices program is we can get a great diabetes advocate from Zimbabwe to come here, and you met the other voices, you've been networking and learning and exchanging, and you will bring what you learn here and with the network and with the community, and you've been doing great things in your country. And so that's our hope for all of these dedoc voices, that they come and network and exchange experiences and lessons learned and start doing projects on their own or together with a group or with our support, whatever it may be. They will be the ones, you will be the ones knowing best what to do in your country. You will be the ones knowing best what to do with a certain matter of concern that you have to make that a reality. And we are here to support that.
Wow, thank you so much. I mean, that is really quite clear because everyone can just go and look it up on the dedoc website. I mean, almost every dedoc voice has to sort of like to say, hey, we have open calls, so if you want to be part of us, just join and let's do this together. Do you have anything that you might need to say about this? Thank you.
100%.
Wow.
So I started off with international diabetes advocacy as a young leader in diabetes. And that must have been, I think, 11 years ago in Dubai, so not too far from here. And I'm still in touch with a lot of the people I met at this leadership training. And then every 2 years, we had a new one. And I think you can really tell the ripple effect of when you bring smart and driven people together. Groups form, ideas take shape. And almost all of the people back then are now key players in diabetes, in research and advocacy. They're doing educational projects. Every single one of them is really doing amazing projects. And with the dedoc voices, I am already seeing the same thing. I'm so proud of what all of the dedoc voices are doing in their home countries, but also what they're starting to do together. So this is important.
Wow, thank you so much. Incredible work. So, yep.
If I can jump in on what Katarina was just saying, one of the most amazing stories I've heard here at ISPED now and also at EASD 2 weeks ago, and I've heard it numerous times, is people start to really identify it. dedoc is not a membership thing, right? It's something I started personally over a decade ago. It's now a small team behind, but mostly it is this community of now 250, 300 dedoc voices. I don't call someone an ex-dedoc voice just because he or she has attended a conference 1 or 2 years ago. Once a dedoc voice, always a dedoc voice, as long as you want to and bring yourself into that spirit. But what is amazing is they tell me, you know, when we were at our first conference ever 2, 3 years ago, people were asking us like, who are you? What are you doing here? You're the patient. This is not your space. There were some who got this kind of feedback by being part of the dedoc Voices program. And it really hurt me because it's, you know, we were trying to do something, but it wasn't accepted maybe, or it wasn't normal at the time, at least not for some. Many were very supportive, but some were like questioning, this is not your space. Now, here at ISPED, which is quite a small conference, but there's, like I said, 25 dedoc voices here, so you will all see us wearing, where do I put it now, the dedoc face masks, you know, because of COVID, etc., and we have a little dedoc symbol on it, and it's this hashtag with a circle. And now people here from all over the rank come and see someone of the dedoc voices, and they're like, oh, you're one of those dedoc voices, can I talk to you? And it's become a completely different thing. It's this, I think you have to be part of the dedoc voices, come to a conference like this, experience for yourself how empowering that is and how great it feels to be recognized and seen. And when one of our group gets up to ask a question or make a comment, the whole room turns and listens, because it's the real voice. It's the voice of people living with diabetes getting up and adding to the scientific research or corporate conversations, and it's being valued now. And I think this is so important. And it's not about me or the dedoc core team only. It is about every single person in this community and everybody out there who subscribes to that spirit of nothing about us without us and paying it forward. Everybody can be part of that. You don't have to be at the conference. We only have limited spaces. That's the only negative. I could bring almost anybody to a conference like this. That's never going to happen. But as long as you subscribe to that spirit of paying it forward and nothing about us without us, you can feel part of that community and contact us and be part of the tribe.
Thank you so much for the great work that you've done to fight to make sure that also people living with diabetes also get the opportunity to attend conferences where they were not welcome years back. Now it's a great thing, and you say that like you wish you could bring everybody into the room. Now, yes, dedoc is growing. There are so many initiatives that it has. So firstly, we had Dog Day, there's Dog Night, there's dedoc Symposium, there's also Dog Talk. Can a non-member get an opportunity to speak on these platforms?
Definitely. For Dog Day, this is the community event we do. It is very simple. We want to hear from you, and thousands of others out there want to hear from you. So if you have something to say, if you have some project to present, an initiative, a topic that you deeply care about and you want to advance, drop us an email. Drop us an email and say, I would like to present this at Doc Day. The principle is very simple. It was the same when it was a room of just a couple of people than it is now where it's this big, big online event. You get 5 minutes from us. So when we do Doc Day, contact us, tell us what you want to talk about. We'll give you 5 minutes on that live event where you and I, or you and Steffi, our head of comms, or you and Renza, who's in Australia and moderating some of those, where we'll talk. And every 5 minutes it will be somebody else. So again, within 2 hours you can only have so many 5-minute slots, but whatever we can accommodate, we will bring it on. For the dedoc symposia, we are a bit more limited by time and also by it's addressing a different audience. It's towards the HCPs at a conference, so that's a bit different. Doc Talk is a new format where it's on a specific topic that we co-create together with a partner. But there also, we go out and we look for people that we've heard about on social media or personally or at a conference, and we bring you guys in. DDoc, you will hear me and Steffi and Hanne and Renza, so the DDoc core team, moderate these events, but we're not really there to talk. The talking part, the presenting the patient voice part, this is you. This is the community. This is people we want to bring to the table. This is what it's about. So yes, it's open.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. So many people wanted to hear about this, and I've seen it. Yeah, thank you so much. So maybe this one, I would ask this to Dr. Katarina. So mostly in the diabetes community, or just on Twitter, mostly there are so many hashtags, and we cannot say this hashtag belongs to this organization or this hashtag belongs to these people. But there's this one hashtag that means so much to the DDoc voices. What can you tell us about the Pay It Forward mission? Bastian has talked about it, but what can you say to us? Thank you.
Yeah, the hashtag payitforward is not exclusive to DDoc. It's really one that everyone that talks about or with people with diabetes can use. And it's about when you've been helped with something and when someone from the community supported you, you pay it back or forward in a way that you help other people when they need it. And I think that's a great thing. It describes how everyone is doing this voluntarily. No one earns a single cent, euro, dollar with it. It's all volunteer work. And if you've been helped and if your life has improved to the better, you help someone else, and that goes without saying.
Thank you so much for sharing that briefly. Oh, this is amazing. So now maybe I would go to Bastian. Like you say, like with the DDoc symposium, it's a different thing altogether. Like you'll be addressing to a different extraordinary people, HCPs. How do you decide like the topics that person has to share on the DDoc symposium is different from the Doc Day, because people have to say, I want to talk about this, but with the symposium, how do you decide like which topic should be addressed to the HCPs?
Yeah, the DDoc symposium is a bit more crafted, let's say. It's where we've only started this a year ago, and actually the ISPAD DDoc symposium was the first one ever. ISPAD was the first professional conference inviting us to do that, to do a symposium at their conference, and we are eternally grateful for that. We will have our next one tomorrow. Well, by the time this goes out, it'll probably be a couple of days or weeks back, but you will find it on our YouTube and on our website. The DDoc symposium allows this patient voice that we all are to speak to, as I said, healthcare professionals, nurses, researchers, and industry. And it has elevated what used to be Doc Day, a community event, us talking amongst ourselves in our little peer-to-peer support community bubble, to open that up and let others in. And I think that is so important because it has elevated that patient voice and that format to a completely different level. And I love the fact that more and more people from the professional side come and join and view it on the YouTube and then come with comments and questions, because we don't want to stay in that peer support community bubble, right? We want you guys, if you're listening, HCPs, nurses, we want you to hear what matters to us. And we want this open dialogue to take place. And this is what the DDoc Symposium is. Now, how do we select topics? We have to cater a little bit to the audience. So at ATDD, we will look for people in the DDoc community that we know that are caring about or will talk about something that is relevant to people at ATDD who are usually from more from the medtech and technology and digital side. Versus at EASD, it will be more medical. At ISPED now, this is the conference for children and pediatric diabetes. So we have Susanna speaking tomorrow, who's our youngest dedoc voice ever. We have Jasthethi from India talking about her youth camps, which is amazing. And then we have Tom from JDRF talking about the T1D index. Now, that's something that has been talked about quite a lot all over the world because it just recently launched. But he will talk specifically about also how they work together with Life for a Child and young people and how they feature in that. So we try to cater a bit to the event, the conference that we are speaking at. We select that, but again, if you have something that you think should be part of the dedoc symposium, either a topic or something you want to present yourselves, same principle applies. Talk to us, send us an email, let us know, and we'll consider it.
Wow, thank you so much for even making sure that it's open. I mean, people can actually suggest. It's not like, hey, we are not listening through you. We only the people that have to decide what goes to the HCPs. I mean, that is amazing. So thank you so much for that. So now, talking about the value that patients bring to the table. I know you've always been talking about it, to say nothing about us without us, and it's now a trending hashtag that the people living with diabetes are using. So I mean, if you could maybe both of you, if you could maybe start with you to say, okay, fine, what is that the value to inspire someone who is going to be watching this to say what is the value that someone that brings to the table? I mean, when we say the table, I'm saying to the HCPs and the industry, the researchers. What can you say about that?
Yeah, before we had people with diabetes attending conferences and being part of, important decision processes, I often wondered, this is wrong. The world is upside down. The people that this is about are not part of that conversation. And we're slowly seeing a process of giving people a voice, but also a seat at the table of where decisions are being made about them or where research about them is being presented. And I really like the cultural change that is happening at the moment. We're still at the very beginning, I would think, but the dedoc Voices program is already a big step. Also that we are able to stream this publicly and that it does not stay within the four walls of a conference, which somehow silos all of the knowledge that is being shared. This is really important. But patient involvement needs to be present at all levels. So at Charité, for example, which is the hospital where I am a doctor, but also a university teacher, we recently had, together with dedoc, a project where we had people with diabetes teaching future doctors about diabetes and talking about language matters. And this is the change we need to see on all the levels that somehow concern people with diabetes. They should really have a seat at the table and they should have a say in whatever concerns them.
Thank you so much. I don't know, Bastian, would you have something to add?
Yes, and
take it over.
Because you asked for the value of the patient voice and what's behind nothing about us without us. And what I want to make sure is that it doesn't just stay, it starts with communication and talking about it, and we all repeating this like an everlasting mantra. We need to be involved. We need to have a seat at the table. We are the table. Nothing about us without us. When you ask for the value behind, I think Katarina said, there is a lot we can bring to teaching new generations of doctors, for example, to being engaged in all these conversations. But if you ask for the value, there's, the best way, not the best maybe, but the way that value is measured in this world often is money, right? And it makes me a bit proud to say that even on that front, we have now come to a point where we can actually put a number to what do we bring to the table. Because what we also do with select dedoc voices who've been involved with us is we do consultancy work. Pharma or meta company wants to launch a new awareness campaign, like the Blue Balloon Challenge right now. Or they want to launch a new product and they're designing the flyers for it. Or they're working on a new device and they're not sure whether what they call patient or user journey and how it's being used and held and worked with in everyday life, whether that is good or whether maybe it needs to be changed. And then they turn to us and say, can you get together a group of 3, 4, 5, sometimes 10 dedoc voices to consult us from a specific region maybe with a specific background. And we bring a group of dedoc voices, diabetes advocates together, and they work with a certain company under NDA, et cetera, for just a session, sometimes for a year, sometimes even for 3 years on specific pipeline products, etc. And this is being paid for. And that is the money we make to then fund the dedoc Voices Scholarship Program. Now, why am I saying that? I'm not saying that because I'm so happy we're making money. We're making money. dedoc is a profit for impact. So the money we make goes back to funding the scholarship program. But what I think is important is it shows that corporates who are definitely for profit in business, they care about the value in terms of dollars that we bring to the table, because we will be able to make their awareness campaign better. We will be able to make the flyers they bring with a certain drug, medication, device more user-friendly. We will be able to maybe even improve the devices they are currently working on in their pipeline to be having a better user journey. And I think that also proves that we've come a long way. On the research side, clinical trials in Europe, if there's no patient advisory board, it's going to be very, very hard to bring clinical trials through reimbursement and EMA approval, et cetera. So this is another way of looking at it. If we don't have a very informed body of diabetes advocates who really know what they're talking about and who understand where the latest trends in research and development are, and where's that being discussed? Here, at ISPED, ATTD, EASD, ADA, et cetera, then you're not going to, you as pharmacos, et cetera, you will not get very far. And we need to build this community together. And again, this is where dedoc, I think, is a good partner to many other companies out there, and vice versa.
Oh, thank you both for your beautiful ideas, and the way you had to explain it just says it all. And if people who are watching this, they would be intrigued, they should be encouraged to come on board and just give it a try, apply, and maybe you would be here flying to the world, places you've never been, networking with amazing people. I would say this because in my case, I became super active when I had to meet other people who are also super active, and it just goes along that way. Maybe the last question would be, how can people pay it forward? People that are watching that are not yet involved in that advocacy, they might need to say, hey, can I call myself a patient advocate? I mean, how can people pay it forward?
I don't think there is a set criteria. What we really do when somebody applies to the dedoc Voices program is we don't look at how many Facebook followers we have, or we really read what you are writing. So whichever way you're answering these 3 questions, who are you, why do you want to be a dedoc voice, and how will you pay it forward, that will speak to us. You have to convince us that what you think you are doing and what you want to do is important. And whether you have 40,000 Instagram followers or don't even Instagram account, that doesn't really answer the question. Because, just an example, we had somebody apply who was not active on social media at all, but she said, if I can come to one of these events and learn something, I have this community group, and people walk for 3 hours every 2 months to come meet me in the local church, and that's where I will talk about what I will have learned. So that's maybe 20, 30 people out in a small rural area somewhere in Africa, walking for 3 hours to sit down and talk diabetes. Now that's, for me, the most purest way of paying it forward. That might not reach 40,000 people on Instagram, but it will reach those 20, 30 people sitting together every 2 months in the church. Whichever way you find to make sure that what you will learn, what you care about, reaches others, is perfectly fine with me. And maybe as a last, the pay it forward, I want to say one more thing, where the reason why I chose We Are Not Waiting as a hashtag we've been using with dedoc's involvement with the Open Project. Nothing About Us Without Us has been around forever. It's used by many, many other, also outside the diabetes community, of course, but it's what we subscribe to. Paying it forward, as you said, is not a hashtag we own, but it's something that I personally value very much, and that has a little bit to do with where I heard it for the first time, which wasn't the diabetes world. I'm a sailor by heart. I sailed around the world, and I was in my first year of sailing towards the end of a very long summer. I almost lost my ship. I was barely making it into a small harbor in Poland. I had almost lost my ship. It was full of water. I'd almost lost the mast. And there was this old Commodore of the harbor. He must have been in his 80s, gray hair, blue blazer, golden. And 3 days, he just made sure I was all right. He brought me food. He took me to a local store. He did anything that I needed before I even asked for it. And I think our natural reaction to somebody going out of his or her way to help us is to pay it back, to say thank you, to give money or whatever it is. So when my boat was back okay and I was fed and happy and ready to go on, I wanted to go and say thank you and give him something or ask if I should pay for it and how much. And he was the one who said, he put his big sailor hand on my shoulder and said, you know, son, every sailor needs a little help every now and then. I have been helped too. Pay it forward. And with that, he turned around and I never saw him again. And that is pay it forward. And that's when I started dedoc afterwards.
Wow, that is so touching and encouraging. And I don't know if Dr. Katarina, you have something to add, or you might need to say like any words of advice. Lastly, what would you have to say? Thank you.
Words of advice would be speak up when you feel that you have to. You would be surprised who listens. And don't hesitate to apply for dedoc voices. It's really, like Bastian described, a mindset question if you're part of the group. And if you feel motivated to go out and take something home that benefits a lot of people, then you're one of us. So we're looking forward to meeting you, future dedoc voices out there.
Wow, thank you so much. It was quite an honor for me to invite like people like you, extraordinary people like you. I mean, so many people look up to you and everyone wants to be in a room with you, like to say, okay, hey, we need to discuss about this. But you took like from your very tight schedule to be part of this podcast. That means a lot. And with that, I say thank you. And it's my graduation, and I feel really honored to have you both. Thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you for having us on your amazing podcast. Congratulations to your graduation. Congratulations, and thank you for joining us, although you should probably be somewhere else right now, but you made it here. And again, to everybody out there, future dedoc voices, this is our dedoc, we call it the voice book, where all the ones who we are currently funding for EASD and ISPAD are in, become part of the book.
Thank you so much, Tino. And yes, congratulations on your graduation. We need to celebrate big time.
Sure. Thank you.